for me. I'm just really happy to be here. As I've said in the other two services, I'm nervous. Public speaking is not necessarily my strong suit, maybe. And to add to this service, I'm a little tired. So this is the most excitement I've had in a while. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be with you. A lot of you know my husband and I were married here in this church, right here. My dad married us. And so we just have a special heart for this church. And we just love the beautiful creation that's around here. So before I go any further, let me just say how appreciative I am to so many of you who've reached out to me in messages or comments on Facebook, emails, cards. It's meant so much. And this church is just really awesome. You welcomed my family with open arms when we moved here from San Diego, and really bonded behind our family even when my mom battled breast cancer. So thank you, and it helps me, makes it a little bit easier for me to share with you today because I do feel close to you all. Well, as my dad said, I'm his oldest daughter. And really neither of us could have ever imagined he'd be loaning me his pulpit someday, because I was really never much of the devotional type growing up. We also didn't know we'd be rocking matching hairdos either, so God's full of surprises. And that's what is kind of fun about serving our God is He can use anything that happens in your life, even cancer. God has had many surprises for our family throughout the years, and I wanted to give you a little bit of my background and history before I got into my cancer journey. I was born while my dad was attending seminary, as he said, so I've always been fondly referred to as his seminary souvenir. So I've always been, but definitely not always, proudly assumed the role of PK, or pastor's kid. I saw early on in my childhood how much work my parents put into ministry, but didn't always see the return for all that hard work. An especially tough reality for me was the call God placed on our family's life to move several times. And I know this congregation understands that tough reality a little bit better today. If I had spoken before my parents had decided to move. And let me just pause here and say that our family is really praying for this congregation, really hopeful for what God's going to do here. And I really can't wait to come back and see when this Life Fitness Center is built. I will be here. So anyway, with my parents' move approaching, you can imagine how hurt I was each time they moved. I said in the first service, I still haven't counted up all the moves, but maybe I'll count them this time. So my dad's first ministerial position was at Camp Creek, Oklahoma. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. I mentioned in the first service that on a good Sunday, the church would run about 30. So it was this little small country church, and that's where he began his ministry. And then we moved from there to Tucson, Arizona. That was an inner city church where we literally lived right next door to the church. And then from Arizona, we moved to Bethany, Oklahoma, which is just a suburb outside of Oklahoma City. And my dad served as the children's pastor there. While he was there, he coined the children's church name God's Gorilla Gang. It was a really cool place for kids to hang out and learn about God. And actually, every now and then we see people from that time in our lives, and we have to do the God's Gorilla Gang handshake. So I kind of want to show you that today. So Andrew, would you come up here? Y'all can learn it. Okay, so you do regular handshake, and then the much cooler handshake. Butterfly up, high five, gorillas. my dad felt another call in his life. And this time we moved to Escondido, California, which is about 30 minutes outside of San Diego. Hi, I just saw some of my friends. And that's where I attended both junior high and high school. And then after high school, I went to Point Loma Nazarene University, which is in San Diego. And during my first semester of my freshman year at college, my parents got another call, and they moved here to Brookings. As you can imagine, by the time I was a teenager, the church for me really didn't represent a place of refuge or a house of worship. For me, not only the church, but God was a channel for my anger. I further became angry with people in the church who played the role of church really well, but they didn't always live and act like Jesus. I saw sometimes these people who at the time I'd characterize as hypocrites took the opportunity to criticize others, and worse yet, they were just lazy believers. They took every chance to judge and really had nothing to show in terms of service to the community or the church itself. This was justification for me to just stay away from the church completely and a relationship with God. In questioning how others were living, I allowed my anger towards God to fester, and which just really justified, again, just disenchantment with Christianity overall. At the time, I didn't realize how crucial it was that when walking with Christ, we only really need to evaluate what we are doing and focus on how we can be used. When we do that, somehow He miraculously takes care of the rest. I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do, but I've learned the less I'm concerned about others, what others are doing, and the more I'm concerned about myself in relationship with God, the more I'm fulfilled. And I'm talking about fulfillment that no food, no celebrity, no drug, no party, no anything can come close to. My last 3 years of high school, I really started to stray away and determined that I could function just fine without God. As I'm sure many of you have learned yourself, we don't necessarily need God in our lives. We can get along pretty well. We're a pretty intelligent creation. And it's not until we discover the amazing difference that there is when we serve Christ as opposed to living a life without Him. I had a false sense of security that I could be successful without having any kind of solid relationship with God. And I certainly didn't want to release control of my life over to Him, because through my teenage lens I saw what that brought. It brought moves, and in my teenage lens I thought you couldn't have as much fun when you're a Christian, which isn't true, by the way. By the time I graduated high school, I was really kind of lost. I wasn't hopeless. I was happy. I had a lot of friends. I worked really hard at my job. I played hard, but there were some months where my parents weren't really sure what I was turning into. I was often in trouble for fighting. I talked back to teachers a lot. My parents were in the principal's office quite a few times. They knew our phone number, I'll say that. And also my parents and I didn't really have the solid relationship we do now. When it was time for me to go to college, I was more than happy to get out of the house. And as I said earlier, I attended Point Loma Nazarene. On my first day at Point Loma, I met a girl named Allison. We were roommates, and we spent our freshman and sophomore year together at Point Loma, and really became best friends. We relied on each other a lot during those first 2 years of being broke college kids. Allison's always on my heart, but there's really been an increase in my thoughts about her as July 18th approaches. On that day, Allison was on her way to pick up our friend from school, Barbara, from the airport. All three of us had planned to spend a week in Allison's hometown of Michigan, seeing the sights and making memories. And unfortunately, instead of memories of three college kids spending the summer together, Barbara and I share the memory of attending Allison's funeral. See, Allison died on her way to the airport when she was going to pick up Barbara. So let me just say the aftermath was devastation and just true realization that no matter how good life is going, that peace on this earth can be shaken. Initially, the devastation really fueled my anger towards God. I asked a lot of the why questions that we often do when things, in this life come up. Fortunately, anger eventually turned into submission after realizing how fragile this life was and learning that when I'm still and listen, God is there to personally and individually reach out to each one of us in our darkest times. I had lost hope in God, and then Allison died, and I could do nothing but submit to how great our God is. I've come to believe wholeheartedly that Allison is in heaven, a place I'm confident she will greet me when my time on earth is done. A place where peace cannot be shaken. There'll be no more goodbyes, no more tears, no more pain, and no more suffering. There really aren't words to accurately explain it, but over the past 10 years, I've felt the presence of God on several occasions. And because of that, I've allowed God the opportunity to shape me into the woman I'm becoming today. I've discovered my ultimate need for God's grace, peace, and protection